begin with a 28 French chest tube. Cut it below the fenestrations to prevent any leakage when you run blood through the tube. These tubes have a coating on the inside which prevent coagulation, so you'll need to repeat this process 3 or 4 times. This process being pouring the blood in, allowing it to dry for a day, and then coming back the next day and pouring more blood in. We're going to simulate the appearance of having blood dried in the chest tube. So we take our simulated blood, and we pour the desired amount into the chest tube. Once you have an adequate amount of blood, take the tube between your fingers and roll it back and forth to give it an even coating. There are a variety of different blood products on the market. Here at the Rhode Island Hospital Medical Simulation Center, we prefer to make our own blood. We use the simulated powdered blood concentrate and mix it in a specimen cup using equal parts dextrose and sodium chloride. We find that this gives us a nice consistency. As you can see, it coats the inside of this cup, and it also coats the inside of a chest tube. This is an IV fluids drain that we created at the request of our nursing programs. We taped IV tubing to the inside of a large emesis basin. At the end of that tubing, there's an extension set. During the simulation, this extension set is then coiled and taped to the arm of the mannequin to represent a peripheral indwelling IV. The port of the extension set can then be used to push medications or IV fluids through that is collected into the drain. This is a cordis line adapter which will attach to your IV fluids drain. Our CTIC nurses asked us to give a simulation of having a central line in the neck of the mannequin that they could push medications and fluids through. We created this adapter, and then it attaches to the extension set, allowing a full circuit that you can push through the neck of the mannequin and have it drain into the basin below. Once the simulation is complete, the fluids that have collected in the drain can then be measured and compared against what the nurses believe that they pushed during the simulation. Now we're going to show you what you need to create your own cordis line adapter. Start with a number 4 cordis, some transport tape, a secondary IV set, Surgilube, rubber cement, and some shears. Open the secondary set, and we're going to adapt it for our needs. Cut the IV tubing just below the drip chamber. Remove the roller wheel. These can be discarded. The end of the cordis has a diameter that is equal to the end of the IV tubing. What you need to do is cut a slit in the end of the cordis to allow it to fold in on itself as it is inserted into the end of the tubing. Once the slit has been made, we then apply Surgilube. Remove any excess, and with a little bit of pressure and some patience, you can insert the end of this cordis into the tubing. As you can see, it's been inserted approximately ½ an inch, but this itself is not sufficient to keep it in the end of the tubing. Apply a dab of rubber cement around the joint. And now allow this to sit and dry for at least 24 hours. Once it is dry, apply tape to add an additional protection against leakage and accidental removal. Now you have a completed cordis line adapter that you can attach to your IV fluids drain. Here is a pleurobac that we filled with simulated blood. The blood has been run through the tubing to give the appearance of dried blood in the tube. The Y connector is used to attach one chest tube with a simulated clot and one chest tube without a clot. This is a blood reservoir using a 500 cc bag. Empty it of the saline and replace it with simulated blood using a 60 cc syringe and an 18 gauge needle. We inject blood made with distilled water and powdered blood concentrate. We use distilled water to allow for long-term storage, preventing development of mold or fungus in the tubing. Once the bag is full, we will place this under the mannequin, and taking the end of the tubing, insert it into the end of the chest tube to allow blood to flow once the clot has been discovered and manipulated. To simulate our clot, we use red jello that we got from our dietary department. If you wish to make it darker and more realistic looking, add some simulated powdered blood concentrate. Take the chest tube that you've pre-prepared, and we're now going to insert it into the jello. Take care not to insert it too much, because you want the jello clot to be able to be manipulated. Now that you have the jello inside the tube, you need to move it into proper position. Use a stylet to manipulate the clot and get it to the desired position in the chest tube. Prepare the chest tube 1 to 2 days prior to the simulation and refrigerate to prevent the jello from becoming too soft. Now we moulage the mannequin. Loosening the neck and chest skin, we have access to place our central line. Take the cordless adapter that we made previously and place it underneath the neck skin in the approximate anatomical position. Once you find the position you like, we now reattach the neck skin. Apply a tegaderm as a dressing, and this will complete the moulaging of the neck. Now we take the end of the adapter and run it down behind the shoulder of the mannequin, securing it underneath the flap of the chest skin. The end of this adapter will now be attached to the extension set from our IV fluid strain. Once attached, we run the extra tubing off the edge of the bed. Now this completes the circuit, and you may push your meds and your fluids through the neck. Now you have a complete circuit, and it will drain down to the basin below. Next we take our basin and stow it underneath the bed so it is out of the way during the simulation. Take your blood reservoir and place it underneath the left shoulder of the mannequin. The pressure from the mannequin will allow the blood to flow through the tubing. Through the side of the chest skin, you're going to insert the blood tubing. As you insert it, ensure that your roller clamp remains underneath the armpit of the mannequin. The tubing will be covered by the Johnny. By having the roller clamp in this position, a confederate in the midst of the simulation can open the blood tubing once the clot has been manipulated. Once the tubing has been fed underneath the end of the chest skin, we insert it into the end of the chest tube above where the clot is. We secure this with a couple of rolls of tape. This prevents leakage into the inside of the mannequin during the simulation. We tuck the clotted chest tube under and the unclotted one. This will further be moulaged with an abdominal pad and some tape. Attach the ends of the chest tube to the Y connector on your Pleurovac. As you see, the clot has been manipulated. The confederate opens the roller clamp, and now the chest tube can flow with blood. It flows through the chest tube, down the tubing, and into the Pleurovac.